The meeting is called to order. Would everyone stand for a silent prayer and a pledge of allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming to the Ferguson City Council meeting, May the 4th, 2026. Would everybody put their phones on silence, please? May we have the roll call, please?
Councilwoman Null,
Here.
Councilwoman Covington,
Here.
Councilman Cassoff,
Here.
Mayor Shropshire,
Here.
Councilman Franklin,
Here.
Councilman Palmer,
Here.
Councilman Williams.
Here.
A quorum is present. Before we start this evening public comment, I would like to say a few things. Before we begin, I
Yeah,
want to take
it's
a
a link.
moment.
It takes you to the website and it's the
Set
report
clear
concerns to me.
expectations.
And neighbor, you can
Tonight's
also
meeting
report.
will proceed. We understand that there are strong feelings surrounding the matters on tonight's agenda. That is both expected and respected. This chamber is a place where voices can be heard, but it must also remain a place of order, respect, and disconcern. Public comment will be conducted according to the established rules, including the 3-minute time limit. I will assure that everyone who has signed up is given the opportunity to speak within the guidelines. However, disruption, including shouting, interruptions, personal attacks, or any behavior that interferes with the ability of the council to conduct business will not be permitted. If necessary, individuals who do not adhere to these expectations may be asked to leave so that the meeting can continue. We are here to do the work of the city of Ferguson that requires respect for the process and for one another. I appreciate your cooperation. We will proceed. This evening, you have 3 minutes to speak clearly into the mic. And I would like to hear your name and your address. Please speak clearly. And when you see the 3-minute ruling, please shut it off. I would appreciate it and thank you. Now, public comment is open.
Tim Larson,
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, Tim.
Pleasure to be here. I wanted to come here tonight to speak in favor of the 30-day deadline that you may remember you passed last meeting. But unfortunately, that only lasted for about 1.5 minutes. And it's a shame because I think it puts us in a high pressure situation where we're facing a hard deadline and there's a lot more we could do. If we had those 30 more days, we could have gotten more questions answered. We could have talked to surrounding communities and the school district, and maybe even got ourselves a slightly better deal. And I personally think it's unfortunate that the deadline, the 30-day extension didn't work, because I think this proposal has a lot of promise. It has a lot of the elements that we're looking for. It makes use of the Emerson campus. It promises more jobs as well as moving existing jobs to Ferguson. It brings in more money in a couple different ways that can be used to pay police officers, can be used for major street projects. For example, it can help with the roundabout at Chambers, just as an example. So I say to you, this proposal deserves your consideration, and I say the same thing to the city. Instead, the city and the residents are faced with a very hard, short deadline because, as I understand it, tomorrow Copeland is having a meeting to talk about whether or not employees are going to go to Ohio. But that shouldn't distract us. Regardless of what happens at that meeting, regardless of what happens in the vote today, I hope that the city and the residents and the developers can continue to talk so that this proposal does not collapse because we were boxed into a short deadline. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim.
Henry Winifred.
Good
Good
evening,
evening,
Henry.
Mayor, Council, and citizens. I know you have a heavy burden to resolve with this issue. Unfortunately, what is going on is a pressure tactics to get you to sign a contract that has nothing for us. Even if I accept that the health issues that I'm complaining about doesn't exist. The SSL is not required in that contract to use local labor. That's one of the pressures that you're getting. No specific requirement to pay all costs for decommissioning or remediate the facility when it closes. It rests on us. We have to bear the burden. No specific termination provision. They didn't go bankrupt tomorrow and we are held with a bag. Unfair to the city council to decide, I just said it earlier, to decide the future of the region. 7 people in a short period of time. The university, and I can provide this information, University of Wisconsin, 2023. Data centers consume over 228 billion gallons of water. We're getting water from the same place. Where is this water going to come from? Water is not infinite. And you're trying to put a power plant, I talked about this before, because of my experience in the power industry, that they were going to build out of between 130 and 200 megawatts. 200 megawatts will power a large city. So if you're using it for that data center, that data center has to be really big. And the power plant is going to be pumping carbon dioxide, nitrogen, and all kinds of things in the air near schools that our children are going to. Now, I can also provide you the information the first year. This is from your website. The school is going to lose, Ferguson School District is going to lose $4.3 million in the first year. Do you know what $4.3 million can do for our kids? Now, all I'm saying to you guys is you need to think about this. If we're going to be buying equipment for them, do all kinds of things for them so they can avoid sales tax and property tax, we need to be in business with them. We need to talk. And if we're going to use our lives because we're going to get sick from this, in an exchange for nothing, you need to really re-examine this project. It doesn't pass the smell test. Thank you.
Thank you, Henry.
Mary Baker.
My name is Mary Baker, 9614 Newton Drive, Ferguson. Good afternoon. These are just my concerns. Okay, one, I have a list of them, and so I'll do quickly. My concern is about the cost of utilities. The utilities that this company is going to be using is going to raise our cost of utility. I'm a senior citizen, and I'm having problems with that. My current concern is also about the grid. Strain the noise pollution, the noise level from their cooling system, increased traffic. The streets here are terrible here in Ferguson. We can't even get a pothole fixed. So, why are they coming in here with all of this grand larceny and all of this grand stuff, and we can't even get the streets fixed here in Ferguson. Okay, and streets are not wide enough. And these are high-tech jobs you're bringing into this neighborhood. Do you think you're gonna get employees out of this neighborhood to fill those jobs? I don't think so. Maybe a few, but not enough. So let's stop with the BS and say no to this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bishop Utah.
Thank you. Yeah, really good.
My name is Richard Buteau. I live at 21 Colchester. Let's talk history. In 1961, John F. Kennedy had just been inaugurated. Within weeks, possibly days, he was told of a planned invasion of Cuba. He was told it would spark an insurrection among the Cubans to restore the deposed frontman for U.S. corporate and criminal interests. Kennedy, to his never-ending shame, believed the so-called experts who didn't know what they were talking about. Kennedy made a beginner's mistake. He rushed a decision, and the Bay of Pigs haunted U.S. foreign policy for the next 60 years as a consequence of that decision. Just a year later, he had learned not to trust those same experts when the Cuban Missile Crisis erupted. He ignored their advice, and a Cold War did not burst into nuclear flames. Ferguson and our new mayor must stand up to experts and liars sinking their own profits at the expense of not only Ferguson of today, but our children's Ferguson, and their children's Ferguson, and their children's Ferguson. A mistake now will sell out our future schools, our future infrastructure, our future safety, our future, and our future home values. Looking back a few generations informs us about the Bay of Pigs, environmental destruction, Coldwater Creek, Jim Crow, each a result of a deliberate, singular political decision that did not need to be rushed. Our children will rightfully ask why we ignored those lessons, and we ignored them not for the benefit of the people who, we ignored them for the benefit of people who don't even live here. Let's not rush. It's in the best interest of Ferguson's. We control our decision. Thank you.
Maria Chappelle.
This is the city.
Good evening, Maria Chappelle-Nadal, P.O. Box 300024, University City. I did not think that I would be here on such an issue that is so vitally important. I guess the first question that I want to ask is, have you guys realized that you guys have contamination, radioactive waste? As you know, 63135 is on the list for RECA, the Radiation Exposure Compensation Act. The next question I have is, when you guys decided to cut the budget for the Department of Justice, did you also consider how much money you're going to lose on this project? How much money the schools are going to lose? And here's my next question. For the contamination that Emerson Electric left dozens of years ago, have you resolved that problem yet? Because it's in neighborhoods. So, you know, the last time I was here, I was dealing with social justice. Now I'm here talking about environmental justice. Is this board willing to be on national news again? Are you? I think you should, I want to urge you to look up the relationship between Blackstone, Copeland, QTS, SSL, LLC, and recognize who you are possibly dealing with and what you are willing to risk for this community. I am concerned about how the community in the long term will be impacted because you're still recovering. And you still have not resolved the issues that we have had for decades now. So I believe that we should be investing in our schools and our neighborhoods. The subsidence, Maling Creek, you guys have a lot of contamination in Maling Creek. When are you guys gonna deal with that? There are people's homes in Ferguson who experience subsidence and they haven't gotten help from MSD. When are you gonna work with that? When are you gonna work on that? I know that I have friends on this board and in this room. This is not against you, it's against this bill because people deserve better and you should educate your community and know that communities like mine are also impacted. Have you looked at gas? It went up 20 cents today, 20 cents. We're paying a lot in insurance, home insurance, health insurance. How much more are people willing to pay for this project that is going to fail the community? How much are you willing to pay? How much should these people pay? How much of a price?
Fran Griffin.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Frank Griffin, 7595 Landing Drive. Resident over 20 years. I come to you today to ask you to vote no on bill number 7339. I have yet to see anything for sure that is going to ensure that our water is going to be clean, that our air is going to be pure, that it's not going to affect our kids and the people in the community's ability to breathe and drink water that's not poison. So I'm asking for a no vote on that. I would also like to mention a few things just from previous experience. I'm wondering, you all basically sold the developers, tried to sell the developers to the community. I've yet to see a department head come out and talk about the environmental impact. I've yet to see a financial person, a financial head for the city of Ferguson come out and talk to the people. You all want to establish trust, but how do you establish trust when you're having the people that are giving you the money, the ones to talk to us in the community? I would also say that as far as the consent decree goes, I don't want to ever hear anything about you don't have any money to cover the consent decree because you guys are talking about giving away buku bucks to a developer. So we can't hear that no more. That's no longer acceptable. Then I wanted to talk about also, anybody from St. Louis County come and did any of you all reach out to somebody in the environmental departments on St. Louis County so they could talk to, so that they could speak up what's going on and the impact that it'll have in our communities? That didn't happen. We hear from lawyers. We don't hear from the specialists that we pay to come here and actually educate us on different things. So I just think that the city hasn't done their due diligence. I would also say, where is the Environmental Protection Agency local government advisor? Where's she at? Why did she not come and present and give her information, her wealth of information? Since she's got the title, I think it was unfair to you, Adrian, that she sponsor a bill and then turn around and leave it in your hands. And to me, I thought the 30 days would have been suitable, but at the same time, it doesn't matter what they say to you. If it's not in the bill, then it doesn't stand, period. If it's not in the bill, it doesn't stand. And lastly, I would say I have a grandbaby. You know my grandbaby. My grandbaby is gonna breathe in this community. My grandbaby is going to grow in this community. I hope that you don't follow his suit because you are my representative sitting in that seat in the 3rd Ward. I already know where Miss Noah is gonna vote. I just hope that you don't monkey see, monkey do this time, and you actually use and express how you feel about this bill.
Floyd Blackwell.
Alderman Floyd Blackwell, 145 Signal Hill, Cool Valley. Good evening, Mayor, Board of Aldermen. My question is, who represents the people, of Ferguson, in this matter? Where is our Thurgood Marshall? Where's that brilliant person to stand up and speak for the people of Ferguson? Is there anybody there to represent the interests of the people?
Address council.
I'm sorry. Is there anybody here that represent the people, Ferguson? You're asking the people to accept something that's been actually shoved down their throats with no real information. You have in comparison of Memphis, that's everybody's fighting about health disparities, noise pollution, water, electricity, and it's right there in front of you. You see what's going to happen, but nobody does nothing about it. I wish there was someone to stand up and say, hey, listen, why don't we take a good look at this? Like we tried to do last month, yes, and give a 30-day cooling off period, but yet somehow that didn't go well, so decide to rescind it and vote again in private committee, which was illegal. You want me to be an intelligent, articulate representative, a good neighbor, which I am, because I've been a very good neighbor of Ferguson. When you had the Bryants here, I was doing crowd control, trying to help, trying to be a good neighbor. And now, right now, what you guys are doing, you're shoving something down the throats of people, not just in Ferguson, but all the other communities around. And we're gonna suffer for it. And no one really cares about it. So you're gonna hang me with the new rope. You're gonna poison me, but the poison's gonna taste good. All right? And you're gonna stab me, but you're gonna talk good to me while you're doing it. All you're gonna do is destroy us. And we're begging you not to. Thank you for your time.
John Null.
Good evening. John Null, 716 North Elizabeth. My thoughts come down to the taxes. I pay residential taxes, personal property taxes, sales taxes. And from what I understand, I'm on the library board. We'll lose $6 million over the life of this. The city will lose, I heard somewhere around $30 million over the life of this. The school district will lose close to $200 million over the life of this. I find this disturbing. I understand the taxes are raised so we can have public safety, parks, fix our roads. But then I understand that Blackstone Corporation is trying to find a way to weasel their way out of paying the taxes on this. So all of us, our quality of life is going to be lessened. We can't, I can't afford to up and leave. I have a nice home here. We enjoy it. I have good neighbors. I volunteer at the farmer's market, at the food pantry. I pick up the street in front of my house, put out the flags on holidays. I'm part of this community. And from what I see, the Blackstone people don't want to pay the full freight on this. They want us taxpayers to do it. It's kind of like socialism for them for setting things up, but once the profits come in, it's privatized. It just seems unfair. That's the big thing. The public safety taxes, I voted for all the public safety taxes when they came in. When the taxes came in for the park district to improve things, I raised the rates. I was fine with that. I know I would see it again. But now I'm seeing those, they'll be siphoned away to some multinational corporation that doesn't care about us. My route when I was a mailman was the back gate of Emerson. I saw the people drive out of that back gate. They drove down Woodstock, made a left on Bermuda, and got on 70. They spent no money in our community. And we're supposed to be worried about their jobs. You know, they didn't live here. They didn't spend any money here. And now we're supposed to be concerned that they're going to lose their jobs If we don't make this decision tonight, their jobs will be up and lifted away. I think that's wrong. If that's what they're gonna hold the jobs over, if Blackstone's going to fire these people or make their ability have them transfer because of this, I guess Blackstones are just bad corporate citizens. Thank you.
Christopher Sudlick.
What's up, y'all? I'm Christopher Sudlick. I live at 6737 Charlie Dooley, and I'm not going to opine on the facts or the details of this because people are going to stand on their soapboxes and tell whatever stories they want to tell. What I will say is that over the weekend, I went canvassing with 3 other people, all Ferguson residents, and we knocked on a couple thousand doors across the city. Wards 1 and 3 mostly, trying to go after the swing votes and see what we could find. And, normally in canvassing in my history, I'm used to 60-40, 70-30. You just go by the naysayers and keep focusing on the goal. But what I saw this time was unlike anything I'd ever seen. In our entire 2 days, 18 hours of canvassing, thousands of homes, hundreds of conversations, we found exactly 2 Ferguson residents that supported this. That's awful. Nobody here wants this. I didn't have to go and get into the details. I didn't have to tell long stories. All I had to do was ask, have you heard about the data center they're building at the Emerson campus? That's the situation we're in. So what I will say is that I don't know how you're going to vote tonight, but I know how people are going to vote in your recall elections if you vote yes tonight, and that'll be to remove you. On top of that, I want to say I went and canvassed the Canfield apartments, and the conditions there were horrible. Absolutely atrocious. Missing stairs, flooding, mold, electrical hazards, giant beehives directly outside people's front doors, the condition that nobody should tolerate in their community and that nobody on a city council should allow to persist in their community. Y'all need to crack down on those slumlords and not do things like try to get rid of residency permits so that they can get away with crap like that. It's atrocious and something needs to be done about it yesterday. Thank you.
Dana Geister.
My name is Dana Geister. I appear before this council as an introverted resident of
Yeah, I
Ward
need
2,
your address.
123 North Clay Avenue.
Thank you.
Shame on you. Shame on your lack of transparency with regards to this horrible deal. Shame on you for ignoring the public outcry for more time to digest the information that has been continually promised but never delivered. Specifically to Mr. Kassoff, shame on you for thinking people don't choose to live in Ferguson if they have Kirkwood as an option. Not a direct quote, but your meaning was clear. Shame on you. And for the record, my husband and I chose Ferguson in 2019. We obviously have a higher opinion of this community's value and worth than most of the members of council. Shame on you. This is, without question, a bad deal for Ferguson because a deal that relies on a huge 15-year tax abatement is a 20th century solution for a 21st century problem. A fair deal treats the developer as a partner who pays for the privilege of using Ferguson's resources rather than a guest who is being paid to stay.
Kelvin Brown. Kelvin Brown. Melanie Marie.
Good evening. Melanie Marie, Ferguson 3rd Ward, 415 Harrison Avenue, 12-year resident. Kassoff, Covington, Williams, you really ought to be ashamed, but I doubt it. 7338 dies, you hear the community's desire to kill it, and 7339 shows up with the same structure, the same developer, and the same missing protections by the same traders. And it's happening during a leadership transition while the community is still asking for answers. I'm not here to repeat the no data center rhetoric. I feel that, but it's beyond that to me. My argument is that this is a bad deal, and even worse process for the people. Because after my comrades campus this weekend, talking directly to residents door to door, we know for a fact the community does not want this as it stands. Not without protections, not without guarantees, not without being centered in the decision. So how do you hear that and then turn around and try to move it forward anyway? How dare you decide what belongs in the third ward corridor without the people who live there after all these years of neglecting it? Not much is clear about this bill, but what we do know is this project jumped from 15 megawatts to roughly 200 megawatts. That's enough power to power 160,000 to 200,000 homes. That is industrial scale, and being zoned industrial shouldn't mean we go into a deal blindly. And the return, 300 jobs with no guarantees for Ferguson residents, no wage standards, no hiring pipelines, no enforceable commitments. And we're supposed to call that a win. That's nothing but an ego stroke for you on the way out the door. Meanwhile, the Property Restoration Program, a program designed to put vacant homes into the hands of residents, hasn't been publicly updated since 2021. So let me ask this question. Why does community ownership move slow, but outside development moves fast? Because that's what this looks like. When residents raise questions about public programs, property, and decision-making, we should be met with transparency, not silence, not backdoor meetings, and certainly not messages like the ones I've received telling me to watch my back. I had to step back and say, this is $1 billion deal we are trying to stop. But for me, to get death threats about it speaks volumes. So let's take this back. 7339 is your bill now. And if you choose to move this forward, that's your decision. And just as you have a process, the people have one too. That takes about 957 verified signatures for Ward 2, 900 to 975 signatures for Ward 3, and about 800 to 950 signatures for Ward 1. That's not a threat, that's a legal process. And if you think the community won't organize to meet those numbers, you are misreading the room.
I can't read the first name, last name Shropshire.
Hello, my name is Valerie Shropshire, 709 Forest Avenue. I have this this opening speech I had written, but in light of today's or this evening's matter at hand, I think I'm just going to speak from the heart. But I do want to thank the residents and council members that I have met and those who have welcomed me into the neighborhood. I do appreciate it. And I want to let you know that I am so proud of my husband. I stand behind him, beside him 100%. And honestly, I don't know what his vote will be. We've talked about it. We've debated about it. We've been here and there. And so at the end of the day, and after prayer, I believe that he will vote his heart. With that said, this all could have been avoided, I believe, had at the beginning of the negotiations, whether it was a year ago, 6 months ago, however long it was, if time had been taken to consider the residents and their need to know information. It could have been spelled out so simply because in the news, we all know how these events go. The public is so riled up because they don't know, they haven't had time, it gets pushed on them. So at the beginning of the negotiations, had it been spelled out, and if it's so safe to have in that neighborhood, if it's so safe for you to have,
Yes, council, please.
if it's so safe for employees and others to have offices up there, then that could have been spelled out. It could have been spelled out what you're going to do with the water, the fuel, the energy, the effects on the environment. If it's so safe, you could have explained all of that. Now, I don't know. I'm on the fence as well. I know Financially, the deal, I believe, could have been better. But at the end of the day, this all could have been avoided. I don't want Ferguson to be on the news as a city that's divided because of this thing. It didn't have to happen. But I do want the council members to know, or to at least consider, if however you vote, you should be able to stand in front of your constituents and support your vote and give them an explanation why you're going this way or that way. I don't know if you each called a town hall meeting to speak to them, but at least be able to support your vote. Thank you.
Anthony Dyson. Anthony Dyson.
Good evening. My name is Anthony Dyson. I live at 12 Lakeview Court. I've been a resident of Ferguson for 23 years. What I like to say is I've been dealing with legal contracts for over 50 years. As a union president and dealing with one of the largest industry in St. Louis, Anheuser-Busch, to the broker owner of Dyson Realtors. And what I've learned here in America is our politicians, when we run for office, we run for your constituents. You're supposed to do what the constituents, what's best for the majority. If that's said, in saying that, I don't know the pros and cons I've read about this, and I'm not an expert on this data center, and I'm not gonna say I am. But when I started reading more cons than pros, it made me want to do some study and some history. And what I've learned is there's something in writing that says the pros and cons, exactly what this data center going to be consist of. And what I've learned and what I want to see, is there anything in writing that you guys have saying exactly what this going to consist of in writing? Because without a contract in writing and someone signs it, you're only going by what a person promised. So I just like to say that I hope our council members really, before you decide to vote, have you talked to your constituents and do the majority want this? If majority don't want it, then we don't need it.
Jill Holtrip.
I suspect no one's going to applaud after me again tonight.
Yes, the council, please.
Good evening, council and everyone. My name is Jill Holtrip and I live at 100 South Clay. I remember receiving a medical diagnosis several years ago, and my physician said to me before I left, whatever you do, don't go Google this. It will scare the heck out of you, and most of the information out there is incorrect anyway. I see a strong correlation to that advice and this project. Mayor Shropshire, I am gratified to hear you say at the last council that you're wanting to listen to and represent all citizens of Ferguson. There are many who, for a variety of reasons, do not attend these city council meetings. I have, which I'll be happy to give the city clerk, signatures of 54 people who are strongly in favor of this project going forward. I'll be happy to give them to you. Yeah. Oops, sorry. I only have 3 minutes. So they were gathered in a little over the last 48 hours without knocking on any doors, no posting on social media. They all had to drive or walk to the place where the signatures were collected. One woman climbed out of her sickbed to drive to sign it. These signatures are just the tip of the iceberg. These are all stakeholders who are deeply invested in this community. They volunteer on committees. They show up when work needs to be done around town. They willingly donate their time and their resources to Ferguson. Some of them are former council members. As an aside, I consider myself a very environmentally conscious. I maintain a chemical-free yard, mow high in the spring to protect the dandelions and tiny violets for the bees and the butterflies. I collect water from the roof and rain barrels to reduce water consumption, and I am not the least bit concerned about any negative impact from this project. There are far more harmful chemicals in the fabric of people's clothing and the cleaning products they use and the weed killers people use in their yards than they will ever experience from anything generated from this project. Data centers. They don't build data centers. They don't build data centers the way they used to. The industry has learned a lot. Everything on the internet is older technology and doesn't reflect the data centers that are yet to be built. I was on a conference call this last week where new data center construction techniques were being discussed. The strides they have made to make them much more environmentally responsible are considerable. This is a defining moment in the history of Ferguson. This vote will determine the level of Ferguson's future prosperity, and this council will be the one making the decision. You will be making history regardless of how you vote. If you vote no, you will vote to keep Ferguson in financial straits. The ARPA funds have been practically exhausted and we do not, can I finish the paragraph? Nope, okay. Well, that used to be the policy.
Becky Miller.
Hey, let me make one thing clear. I can speak for myself. I do not need the audience to speak for me. Thank you.
Becky Miller. Alan Mueller. Oh, I'm sorry.
Good evening, Council and Mayor. I'm Becky Miller, I live at 435 Darst.
Good evening.
When Proud held the council candidates forum in 2025, one of the questions was, how can we best market Ferguson as a good place to live? One candidate actually answered that Ferguson isn't worth promoting until we can get all the problems fixed. Too many of you sitting in front of me now still believe that same negative narrative. Instead of advocating for our city, some of you are its worst detractors and critics. Accepting the lousy terms and empty promises of Bill 7339 is a declaration of defeat. Proponents of this bill have just decided to grab the first offer we can get. They'd rather settle for whatever small scraps are thrown at us and be grateful because they feel that nobody else could possibly be interested in poor old Ferguson. It's like a woman who tolerates an abusive user boyfriend because she doesn't think she can get anyone better. Instead of accepting this bill, let's change the narrative. We're a diverse community. A lot of people who can afford to move out are still here and not in Kirkwood. They like it here with all its diversity. It's a good place to live. Let's promote that diversity and bring in more people who see it as a gift and an opportunity. Soulard and Lafayette Square were run down neighborhoods until people believed in the potential there. Those areas are now vibrant and highly sought after. We too need to capitalize on our own assets and potential. Much of that potential will be lost, however, if we allow a data center to be built here. We need a wider search for alternative proposals and investors. At the very minimum, we should negotiate with SSL to provide an agreement that is publicly transparent, clearly defined, and mutually beneficial. An agreement that fully safeguards our environment and our neighborhoods, that enhances the community and provides us with true financial benefits. The current development agreement in Bill 7339 doesn't do that. And yes, I read it. Under its current terms, we're trading immediate financial gains for a probable future of long-term losses. Any profits you think have been promised will be lost to lawsuits and futile efforts to clean up an environmental mess. Please vote no to this bill. then let's start doing the real promotion and development this town and its residents deserve. Thank you.
Alan Mueller,
Alan Miller, 45 Dars. Good evening, council and mayor. The deeper into Bill 7339 that my wife and I read, the worse it gets. This bill provides so many obligations for what the city must do, yet the way the text is written, SSL is free from almost any obligation. Maybe there will be some short-term financial gains, but in the long term, our city will suffer. For the city, this bill is 308 pages of nothing. Blank pages, ambiguity, meaningless assumptions, speculations, and misleading phrasings. At one point, my wife and I discussed asking people to tag team with us, reading a litany of legal and financial problems contained in the bill. But you've heard enough, we'll spare you. For the good of our community, you must vote no on Bill 7339. I understand how hard tonight's decision is. If you vote down this bill, city staff are telling you that the budget discussions will be extremely difficult. You will have to make huge cuts in the budget, staff layoffs, and a new set of complaints from residents. We are asking you to take the risk. Therefore, those of us who are asking you to vote down this bill must then stand with you and support you in facing the consequences of this decision. When we ask you to reject Bill 7339, we should all be making a commitment to help you through the process however we can. We cannot make a demand from you and then desert you. You know that Becky and I will help however we best can. We have a room full of people who have been deeply engaged in opposing this bill. These people should be expected to stay engaged to help work through our current budget problems. Make the budget process totally honest and transparent so we can fully understand and appreciate where our city actually stands. Then get us involved in the budget decisions, helping identify our priorities and seeking solutions. Let us help counter the detractors and answer those complaining about necessary compromises. Whichever way you vote tonight, if your decision is made in good faith and you have done your due diligence, you deserve respect and grace. Your vote does not make you a traitor nor a villain. You do not deserve threats or insults. However you vote tonight, we are still neighbors. As my wife just said, Ferguson doesn't need to settle for an abusive relationship. We have a promising future. Vote no on Bill 7339, and then let us work together to build the healthy, equitable, prosperous Ferguson that we all want. Thank you.
Cassandra Butler,
Whew. Good evening, Cassandra Butler, 12 Caldwell Court. So, I'm also going to ask council to vote no on this particular bill, because it's too soon, it's too fast, and there's so much to absorb, and we shouldn't be asked to do it in such a short time frame. That's the first off. I will say that I did submit some questions and I never did get the answers to my questions. And actually, maybe perhaps my questions were geared more toward city versus the developer, but I did not find my answers to my question. So I'm just gonna mention what I wrote about that. I said developers often have a negotiating advantage just on the fact that negotiating is a key part of their business. Municipalities, in comparison, negotiate only a few deals at most, and this inexperience is often a negotiating handicap. Municipalities do better when they have experienced consultants on the negotiating team. I know the council has given the city manager authority to negotiate on the city's behalf. So my questions were, will the city manager enlist the assistance of an experienced consultant?
is the cost to pay such expert authorized or otherwise available to the city manager? If an experienced consultant is retained, who will it be? And I also said developers also make desirable promises which often don't materialize. This is important to have. Thus, it's important to have clawbacks to expectations that are important that don't materialize. Well, what clawbacks were included? So now I gotta go fast. So I'm particularly concerned because of the competency that's required to negotiate $22 billion bill. And we don't have the experience in-house. And I have also noticed how the city is not very good at asking the right questions when they do have experience. Agencies such as our law firm. I think we kind of box the law firm in and ask the wrong questions because we're trying to save money. We do that all the time. So we underutilize the resources that we do have. I don't think we have, so that's a competency question. The other thing is moderation. 22 billion? I'm looking at the initial sums that's being asked for, and I think that maybe just start there if you must do it, up to the 2035. And that might be $2 billion at most.
Lady Jay Hudson.
Hello, City Council people. My name is Joyce Houston, aka Lady J Houston. I'm an entertainer, a person working in the field of, excuse me?
Your address.
My address. I have to give you my PO box because people like Mr. Kassoff has recognized me on the I Care About Ferguson Facebook page. It is on the paper there, but my PO box 5494 Brown Road, Suite 112, 1178. I want to first address what's been happening. All of us that are out here protesting, opposing this bill, this page that he is the admin of, and his partners have blocked most of us from posting on there and has used city records that are on the internet, placed them on there, and then uses a narrative that changes what was really said and the reasons why we said them. Many people in this room, if you could, has experienced this. That page has 8.2 thousand people assigned to it. This is a misuse of a public forum. And I am asking him to stop this behavior. I said that to him on the page and he deleted that. He deleted my entire digital IP information. I've been posting on that page as a musician for many years. I go and look on that page now because I can't see it from my own username. Everything about me is gone. That is not the way that should be. And I want him to stop that behavior. I would like for him, I'm asking him to unblock me because only thing I've done is says, I don't want a data center and put evidence to that accord on there. That is no reason to block me. He has even blocked Councilman Jamil Franklin from the page. How can you do such a thing? Sitting here right here and he can't even speak to us. So we have to go on this page called Keeping It Real in Ferguson. That is loaded with people who are against this. That little collection of names she has, there's tons of people, at least 200 in there talking about there's against it. I went ahead and created a page called the No Data Center in Ferguson, Missouri. In just a few days, I have had people, at least 85 people join that page. Those are their unique IDs. Am I almost done? Lord have mercy. I'm asking you all, please do not vote for this. We do not need it. I have multiple health issues. I've got a Symbicort I have to take twice a day. I have an albuterol inhaler. I have to do like this, to breathe. Okay, I don't need no more. I got radon soil that when I bought my home in Ferguson, they found that I had to buy a $3,000 unit to suck out the radon. No,
Courtney Hulesson.
My name is Courtney Hulesson. I live at 202 Tibbin. And I've lived here for 33 years. I moved away, and I returned to Ferguson and I bought a home here because I wanted to live in this community. I lived in other places in Missouri. This place is different. This place I came back to because the people here are neighborly. They are neighborly. I don't want to see people move away because of their health. I don't want to see the neighborhood children have been out in the streets. They've been playing this entire time. They've been safe. They can breathe. I don't want to see people who are getting healthy from what has occurred here to leave. I don't want that. I don't want Ferguson to have a data center because it will prevent people from moving here. It will prevent people from wanting to grow with Ferguson. It's going to take away the brand of this community. I do not want this at all. There's some really glaring issues that I have. Natural gas is not natural. Well, it is natural, but it is methane, ethane, propane, and butane. Those are all not known carcinogens. The reason you have a vent in your kitchen is because of the carcinogenic nature of natural gas if you use a gas burner. And this project may require 190 megawatts of gas generation. Can Spire even handle that? And will it affect residents? Businesses and residents, may be forced to pay higher utility rates because of the increased temperature that this thing's going to put off. There are residences that are 100 feet from this warehouse that you are saying is going to become a data center. That much voltage next to them is going to put cancer in their bodies. There is so many glaring issues. The fact that the developer said that if it's favorable in the market, they will put more data centers on that Emerson lot. That is a huge problem. That is a huge industrial pollution issue, glaringly issue. There's a lot of little nice words that they put in there, but there is no guarantees of we're going to get laboratory and the nice jobs that they say that they're going to do. There's nothing that requires them to do that. There's barely any employee threshold that needs to be ascertained. We don't even know if the place that Copeland is leasing, if that is going to be included in the amount of employees, which is already going to be like 50 more people. There's just nothing here that we're getting out of this deal. It is a terrible, terrible deal. I do not want to see people upset. People are upset. There's 30 people plus outside right now, and you won't even let them talk today.
Michael Driver.
Michael Dryer, 222. So this bill is not only a reintroduction, but it's been made worse. It adds a formal definition of monitored project use, but now that the servers and computers inside the data center are explicitly excluded from the environmental monitoring requirements. Unlike the majority of similar developments, this project also has no termination clause. There's no performance-based termination, no milestone-based termination, no community harm termination, and no way for a future city council to terminate the agreement for the public interest. In the rush to ram this data center through, a fundamental zoning issue has been overlooked. Pearson's M1 industrial zoning ordinance shows that, quote, data center is not a listed allowed use. So a new standalone data center is not permitted. The existing small data center could be renovated, but developing a separate 200 megawatt data center in the 100,000 square foot warehouse building would require permits for a use that is not allowed in the zoning, and the city planning staff cannot sign off on it. All M1 industrial use must also provide a detailed site plan to the Planning Commission. The quote site plan that was provided by SSL is severely lacking and has not gone before planning. The on-site power generation is also a huge concern. Proposal relies on methane gas fired turbines located on the site. There have been no clear explanation of how the constant operation of the turbines of this scale, which are comparable to jet engines, will be mitigated in terms of noise, vibration, and exhaust. Residents have not been given specific enforceable details on noise modeling, sound buffering, emissions controls, or ongoing monitoring. The warehouse building for the massive data center is less than 100 feet from people's backyards. The plan also has no limit on future expansion. Councilman Kassoff mentioned the data center will have a size of 200 megawatts, which is huge. He keeps trying to say it's not huge, it's big. But the financing structure is open. The developer has said the ultimate energy usage could be more than what's there. And the more data centers are dependent on the market. So the data center in Memphis started out as 150 megawatts in their phase one, but it's grown to over 500. Given Emerson site's 80-year defense contract history, what studies have been done to ensure nothing toxic or radioactive is on site? We need to see all the phase one or phase two ESA. You're frustrated by saying this plan doesn't go through, the whole lot will sit empty. For 15 years, SSL themselves has said there's a strong market interest in the site. You're telling me you can't work as our representatives to attract a buyer that won't pollute our air and water and drive our utility rates? What are you even doing? Vote no.
Linda Lipka.
Linda Lipka, 818 La Maison Court, staff, council, mayor, thank you for your time. To begin, there are a lot of things being said, not all wrong, not all right, but there are so many half-truths that it's hard to find any truth. I'm not here to make anybody right or wrong. Mayor, I just want to point out some facts. Copeland owns the 217-acre campus. Copeland has had the land on the market for 730 days. It costs Copeland $1 million a month to maintain the property. Currently, it's at $24 million. Copeland has a hard date of May 5th, 2026 to meet with their board of directors to determine next steps for the campus. That date hasn't changed and it is tomorrow. SSL makes an offer of $18 million with the contingency that Copeland stay on as a tenant. SSL asks the city to partner by granting them a 75% tax abatement on property taxes with the agreement that the taxes paid will never go below the taxes paid in 2024. So all the taxing jurisdictions, including the city, the library, the school district, will never get less than they're used to. If the city agrees to Chapter 100 and issues the bonds to facilitate the tax abatement, then the development moves forward and the values go up. Tax payments to the jurisdictions increase with each passing year. If the city does not pass the Chapter 100 request, then Copeland meets with the board of directors tomorrow and they have three choices. One, close up shop and move to Ohio while leaving the property on the market, cease maintenance, let the value drop. This creates a 217-acre eyesore for the city. And as the years pass, taxes collect get smaller. Plus, if you're an investor or developer, you let it sit about for a year or so, and then come in and swoop up for a bargain basement price and build in phases that do not require assistance and only utilize the amount of space you want to use. Two, donate the property to a tax-exempt nonprofit if one can be found that will take on the responsibility of 217 acres and no one collects any taxes on the land. Oh, and just because this entity would be a nonprofit, they could still come in with a crazy thing, any crazy thing allowed in the area zoned industrial. Maybe they could sublease to an industrial entity and receive donations in lieu of payment for the use of the land, and the city can't say a word or collect a penny. Number three, sign a deal with a private investing developer who can build anything within the definition of industrial, and the city can't say a word, like a data center developer. Let's not forget this Ferguson sits in state enhanced enterprise zone, a federal opportunity zone, and foreign trade zones. Developers can get breaks on capital gains tax, corporate income tax exemptions, and they can defer or reduce customs duties on imported goods for manufacturing and distribution businesses. Bet Amazon would like that. In other words, a developer can get free money and we still get nothing for the city. Enough has been said about data centers, but I will point out that the agreement requires there be monitoring devices on each corner of the campus tracking noise levels, emissions, and environmental concerns. Also, current state and federal regulations must be met as they evolve and change. They must continue to be met. I would encourage City Council to create ordinances with fines if they do not. I would also ask for citizens and activists to use the full weight of their power to get those regulations streamlined and in the books as soon as possible. If the council votes against the Chapter 100, the city has no say in the future of the land and may not be collecting any more taxes, losing one of the largest property tax paying entities in the city. The city also has no other business in the wings to cover the loss. The city is facing a budget deficit of $2 to $3 million. This means we have to cut people. Let's look at the PD. The current budget is 7.2 million. The proposed budget is 8.4. Are you really willing to cut $3 million? Thank you.
That's all. That's all.
Thank you, citizens. Public comment is over. City manager's report. City manager, is there a manager's report tonight?
I have nothing for the group. Thank you.
There are no special presentations. We move on to consent agenda. There are no consent agendas. We move on to resolutions. There are no resolutions this evening, so we move on to bills requiring first reading. There are no bills requiring first reading. We move to requiring a second reading. I would like to make a motion to amend section 5.1A of Exhibit F of Bill number 7339 as follows. Community impact contributions, workforce development. I'd like to say something about this. Workforce development. Simultaneously with the execution of this amendment, the company will pay to the city $350,000 to be used by the city to mitigate community impact of the project, including without limitations, street repair and other maintenance or capital improvements, and $350,000 to be used to the city for police, fire, emergency, and other services simultaneously with the assurance of the first city to hold the first building permit for the monitored project use. The company will pay $250,000 to the city to hold in a separate interest-bearing escrow account. The environmental mitigation fund, a portion of which may be used by the city to purchase and install real-time monitors of air quality, noise, and hearing. Additionally, beginning on January 1, 2028, and continuing on each January 1, therefore after, so long as any part of the project is subject to the tax exemption described in Article 4 of the company. Article 4, the company will pay $700,000 to the city, which the city will use to mitigate community impact and fund emergency services. Is there a second?
Second.
Ask the clerk, do we have the roll call, please?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, is there any questions? Sorry. Councilman Williams?
So I'm not understanding what you're changing because it's so long. What exactly the language are you trying to change from what to what?
May I refer to the city manager, please?
So from hearing the amendment, what was really changing was the community impact payments. In the original agreement, it was $500,000 a year. It's being increased to $700,000 a year. From the sounds of it, 350 the first year will be earmarked for police, fire, emergency services. 350 can be used for other things, and then it'll be 700,000 a year every fiscal budget year after that.
So we're increasing the amount of payments. Okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
So here it is.
Are there any other questions?
So this vote is on the amendment.
Sure.
Yes. May we have the roll call, please?
Mayor Shropshire,
Aye.
Councilman Castle,
Aye.
Null,
No.
Councilwoman Cook,
Aye.
Councilman Franklin,
No.
Councilman Palmer,
Abstain.
Councilman Lee.
Aye.
Clerk, would you read the bill, please?
Bill number 7339, an ordinance authorizing the city of Ferguson, Missouri to issue its taxable industrial revenue bonds for the purpose of providing funds to pay the cost of acquiring, constructing, improving, and equipping an industrial development project in the city, approving a plan for the project, and authorizing the city to enter into certain agreements and take certain other actions in connection therewith.
Yes. Councilman Franklin?
Appreciate it. So I'll jump right in and I got some questions for staff. Oh, we got a motion that thing? Oh, that's right.
We have a motion. Have a motion for a second, please?
Motion. We need a motion.
Is there a motion on the floor?
A motion for the bill?
Yes.
Yes, second.
Not your motion.
No, you move.
Someone asked a motion.
Yes. So move, David Williams.
There you go.
And I'll second it.
It has been seconded. Can you hear me?
You are the constituent. We supposed to hear you.
Councilman.
All right, I have some questions for staff. So it sounds like you guys increased the pilot payment from 5 to 700, correct?
That's not the pilot payment.
So this is separate.
Correct.
So how much is the upfront payment to the city?
There's two separate payments here. You asking about the
Okay.
pilot payment, you asking the community?
Total payment that's coming to the city? Both? Total?
So the pilot payment is payment in lieu of taxes. The floor is set at $822,900 and some dollars. I don't know off the top of my head on that one. And then the community impact is 700,000 day one plus 250,000 for the monitoring devices for the environmental impact.
Okay, and my next question, so just so that I'm clear, the entire campus, they're trying to get a 15-year abatement for all of those taxing partials. So I've identified, I guess, at least 5 that are significant. 8100, 8000, 8140 West Florissant, 8020 Tifford Ave, and then 74 Woodstock Road. And it looks like in 2025, all of our taxing jurisdictions took in over $1 million from those combined properties. That's not including what they paid in personal property. Is that about accurate?
So if you recall, there was a discussion that this was based on the 2024 payments because they're disputing the 2025 taxes. So they paid it under dispute. They're asking for a reassessment. Similar to your home, if you didn't agree with the assessed value, you can challenge it and ask for a new assessment. So that was
I
taken
got
based on
you,
25.
and that's their right, but I have to go based off what they paid.
Mhm.
They paid that in 2025, well over $1 million in real estate tax. I didn't look to see what you paid in personal property. So I'm just trying to see what the difference would be versus what we're already getting versus what they're offering us. And so for me, it doesn't seem very significant. Like this offer compared to what other cities got in that local area is peanuts. So moving along, my next question, the CB. I sent in recommendations for ideas for things that I wanted to see in a CBA. I also received a CBA agreement from the community, a whole list of things that we asked for. I didn't see anything in the actual negotiation. So what I want to know is what did we negotiate in our CBA agreement with the developer?
That was all part of the development agreement. I usually call on first. I was going to explain that, but we're straight to question. So if you're right, I'll defer back to the people who were negotiating that.
So I guess I'm a little confused because I understand the developer, they're trying to get the best deal for the developer. And then the council as well as the city staff trying to get the best deal. And I think this council gave you authority to negotiate on our behalf. So I'm just asking of the long list of bullet points that we sent over as a community and as a councilman, what did we get as a concession from the CBA? Or did they say, we don't want to do any of these things?
No, if you recall in the meetings, we talked about the dollar amounts, those went up and down, depending on what you're talking about in the dollar amounts. We talked about the environmental concerns with the continuing monitoring devices, so we knew that everything was being met when it came to the environmental impact. Those were all things that we discussed in discussions you were part of.
Okay, so I guess, so what I asked for and what the community asked for in that CBA, that pilot payment, we wanted 60% going to Ward 3, 40% going across to the other rest of the city. We asked for a new library, a pay to school debt. There were so many different things that we asked for, and it doesn't seem like we got a handful of concessions.
Legally, a
from
lot
the
of things that
developers, so-
you're mentioning, you're not allowed to do as part of the CBA.
Right, but
And you
I just
were-
didn't see where, I guess as a councilman, I didn't see where we actually negotiated terms as far as it relates to the CBA. It seems like the 15 years was firm because we said, hey, what about 5 years? It's still at 15. So that's, for me, we didn't meet in the middle. And to meet a negotiation,
Hey.
you go high, I go low, we meet in the middle. But
I personally would disagree because you know that they started at 30 years at 100% abatement. We worked down from there. But if you don't think we negotiated and all, that's your prerogative.
I got you. So my next question, this is for us, City of Ferguson. Historically, have we ever granted a 15-year tax abatement to a business before in our history? Would this be the first time potentially that you're aware of?
That I'm aware of, I've only been here for 12 years, so.
And then my last question, who on city staff vetted the financial numbers that they presented as far as projections of what could possibly happen?
So those were all done by third party that the city worked with, not on the developer side, on our side. And that was
So
all
I
done
got
by
one
Goodwill
last
Valley.
question. I'm sorry, and then I'll turn it over to. Did the city, did we seek counsel with any environmental specialists regarding, because like you said, there's a lot of information out on Google.
Yeah, we actually have had extensive discussions with Gemma and several other people involving that.
Jim, who is that?
Gemma, the company.
Okay. All right. I think that's everything I got for now. I appreciate it.
Yep.
Can he answer the question that he asked? Because I didn't hear him straight. What did we get on the ticket? I don't know how to do that.
Can't talk.
You can't do that, ma'am. We don't answer any questions that you have. Please. You had public comment, and yes, city manager.
I still was gonna bring two people up to talk about the agreement, but that's totally up to your prerogative.
Okay. Go ahead.
So I was gonna call first Ernesto.
Then I have another.
Yeah, and
I have some other.
That's fine.
Questions here.
Well, if he wants to finish with Mr. Franklin's first, that's fine with me.
Are you?
I just think a lot of the questions will be answered with two people I was gonna bring up, but that's up to you guys.
Oh, I got one last question since we're kind of confused.
Well,
As far as you say you talked to the company Gemma, Did they advise you on those recommendations and the increase in the fees based off of what it would cost to buy environmental equipment, or where did it come from?
So the costs remain the same as far as the devices. We had a set number when we went in. That didn't change.
And I'll just say for future reference, I guess when we negotiate contracts of this magnitude, it'd be nice to ensure that in the language, there says something about local union being utilized as well as minority participation. I know, there's an attack on DEI, but this is an African-American community. So we want to see, if it happens, we want to see people in the community that look like us, building and performing these jobs. We need those protections because often we get left out. Thank you.
Councilman Kazoff, we'll finish your questions, then we'll come back. They can answer everybody's question at one time.
Okay, first I want to briefly address the community benefits agreement that Councilor Franklin sent, which he did indeed send one. Our state representative also looked at that and publicly responded that most of the provisions of that CBA were violations of state law. So, I'm not a lawyer and I'm not a state representative, but that's what our state representative said. And so that might be part of the reason why that CBA was DOA. Now, at the beginning of public comment, Mr. Buto, who is no longer with us, said, let's talk history. And I'd like to do that as well. In 1981, Wagner Electric in Wellston closed their plant. At its peak, Wagner Electric had employed about 6,000 people. By the time they closed in 1981, it had dropped down to about 1,500. And the closing of that plant was a devastating blow to the community. Now, I guess in a way we're kind of lucky because the path down from 10,000 people at Emerson back in the day to 300 people in Copeland today was a longer path. But still, we have a campus that once had 10,000 people on it and is now down to 300 and could be 0. Wagner Electric, once it was vacated, was empty for almost 40 years. No jobs, no taxes, and ultimately they found out that the site was contaminated and there was arguments with the Superfund and abating the contamination, and it just dragged out forever. It's now the MET training facility, but it took decades, and it hurt Wellston a lot. It just so happens that the Emerson site also has contamination which has to be contained, monitored, and in some cases remediated. And if Blackstone's not going to stick around and do it, they'll let it go to the tax sale or donate it to a church. And as a matter of fact, donating it is the other option that Copeland will consider tomorrow, depending on the outcome this evening. If they donate it, the taxes go to 0. And the school district, the library, the city, they're all going to lose. Councilman Franklin mentioned a commitment to use union labor. And in fact, the developer has notified us in writing that he is committed to signing a project labor agreement that would bind both Copeland and SSL to use union labor on this project. So there's a lot of potential for good things to happen here. Now, would it be great if we could put Disneyland in there or Six Flags and have roller coasters and hotels and stuff? Sure, it'd be terrific. Well, maybe not roller coasters because they're kind of noisy, but they're low emissions and they're fun, right? So I just happen to believe that given the tremendous benefits, the millions of extra dollars that will flow to our school district, to our city, to our library, and to all the other taxing entities, millions of additional dollars every year. I believe this is a good deal. I believe this is a good deal and I support it.
Citizens, please. We respected you. We respected the citizens when you were speaking. So please give us the same respect. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Just have a couple comments, and then I have a question for the city manager, what we talked about earlier, if you could just clarify. I know that I wasn't here in person, everyone, I was online, because we had a meeting, Southwest Neighborhood meeting. I was one of the votes to go into the negotiation, and because I wanted to hear from you all, I really thought that this would have been presented a lot better. I mean, this is a big deal, and it just hasn't been. A 15-year tax abatement is a very long time. That's what we're voting on, the tax abatement. But then, of course, we know that the data center is a major concern. And it just would have helped me to help you all if the presentation would have been there, and I'm talking to Mr. Onder, SSL, the council, the staff, going back to the Q&A, how things went, initially it wasn't supposed to go that way, and then things changed. I asked the council in new business about 3 months ago, or the city and the council, can we have a redevelopment summit? Can we invite developers into our city? Oh, we have plenty of developers that we're working with, and then this happens, and this is not against you all, as a council rep, and I've been sitting on this council longer than anyone that's sitting here thus far, excuse me. I know that we need development. I know that we need financial resources. Our city does need help, but there are just so many unknowns and uncertainties that I cannot support this. If other council people do, that's okay. That's their business, but this is my vote. And these are my reasons why. And I spoke more about this on April 21st in the council meeting during my miscellaneous. And I know that Kristen from Copeland has stated that Copeland went to the city early last year. And then I don't know when Mr. Onder and SSL came into the conversation. But again, it's the presentation, with all the noise about data centers. If this is a green data center, then everything should have been presented from the beginning. I didn't hear about this until the beginning of March. So again, Jess, when did the conversation start? How come it has been kind of rushed? And some people say, no, it hasn't been rushed. For me, it has been, because it's a lot of information. You got the tax abatement, and then you got this, people are afraid of data centers, and maybe because the education is just not there. People have not been properly educated on green data centers, but that goes into the presentation. Lastly, City Manager Musgrave, I asked in an email, and I asked you to explain. If you did earlier and I missed that because I was on Zoom, I apologize. But there were many questions as to why there was not a hearing for the reading of this bill. So can you just please explain to the residents why?
So we discussed this via email earlier. This type of ordinance does not require a public hearing. That's part of the Chapter 100. Legally, the only thing that was required for this ordinance was public comment one time, and we're offering it twice because that's what the mayor asked us to do. I'm just answering your question.
No, and I appreciate that, because people, again, it goes back to the education. People ask, and I want your questions to be answered, okay? So that's why I asked the city manager, and that's why he's explaining. No matter how we vote, someone is going to be upset at me. Someone is going to say, okay, Councilwoman Noor, thank you for your vote, for your no vote. But someone else may say, well, how come you didn't support that? We need police. You're always complaining about this. You want this done. You want that done in Ward 3. We need this. I'm either way, I can't please everyone, but I have to be able to sleep at night. And again, it goes into the presentation. This just could have went a lot better. And I don't like that. It's just not a good way to do business. And I'll say lastly, if this city survived 2014, and we are still standing, we will survive. And that is for staff too. I appreciate the staff here in Ferguson. I really do. But, I worked for St. Louis County government for 8.5 years and did not receive an increase for 7 of those years. And so I know it can be tight sometimes in government. We have to learn how to do more with less. And so I thank everyone for the time.
So I just wanted to, for clarity, Kassoff brought up the CBA that I submitted. One of the provisions that we advocated for as a community from the residents was the same thing that the developer and the union agreed to outside of our contract today, or at least that's when it was submitted to council. So we had already asked for those provisions to go in that 300-page document. It didn't make it. Now, and I guess in this last hour to sway, that exact thing is in there, including, I believe, an apprenticeship program to train folks that into this job force. So again, I just expected to see more. Like, I know some of the things were noted as being illegal based off of state statute, but again, I believe in asking for the kitchen sink and meeting somewhere in the middle on things. So I'll be quiet now.
Any other comments, questions? City manager, do you have any?
Yeah, I planned on bringing up Ernesto first to discuss some of the things you guys brought up, and then I was gonna have Mark come up second, if that's okay.
That's great.
Yep.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Before you speak.
Yeah.
I'm asking the citizens please to be respectful. No matter what is being said, I'm asking you to give this gentleman his respect. He never said, Mr. Blackwell, please. I'm asking everybody to give this gentleman his respect when he's talking. If not, the ruling will be enforced that I read at the beginning of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members, staff. My name is Ernesto Segura. I've addressed you before. I'm a partner at Hush Blackwell. I represent Mr. Onder and SSL Investments in this project. I appreciate the chance to try and set the record clear.
Excuse me, could you speak up? Could you speak up a little bit, please?
Sure. I'll speak as loudly as you'll want, hopefully. My role is to help folks like Mr. Onder who are interested in going into properties and doing economic development projects like this. I represent developers. I also represent municipalities on big projects like this. To Mr. Kassoff's comments about Wellston, I was able to help with the former Ford plant in Hazelwood and redeveloping that into a productive use. The former Chrysler site in Fenton, I had a hand in representing the developer on that. These are projects that are very difficult to deal with as cities. And they're very difficult to understand sometimes, the tools that we use to make these deals happen. But I'm sorry she had to step out. I was going to agree with Councilwoman Noah and with Mrs. Shropshire. I wish this had gone a little differently because I feel like we've done what we can from a developer side to try and be transparent with the city. I don't think that has translated well with the folks here in the room. I hope that a larger audience has been able to discern fact from fiction on this. And so I'm here tonight to simply trying to answer any questions you may have of the developer team. I do want to highlight a few points if you'll indulge me. And I'll just start briefly with the letter that we're speaking about the project labor agreement. There are provisions in the development agreement in which Mr. Onder will agree under the Chapter 100 development agreement to workforce participation, job training programs, et cetera. And we've had a number of conversations with union leaders across the region in trying to ensure that their concerns were addressed in how this project is handled. We do have a letter from Mr. Onder that I'll give to the clerk. It's the letter that was circulated earlier today, in which there was clarification that there will be a project labor agreement to the extent possible to ensure that union labor is used across the board on this project. The vote tonight is about a Chapter 100 tax abatement tool. And the reality of the situation is that this has been a long time in process. And Copeland spoke to the city staff upwards of 3 years ago about their concerns about Emerson leaving, Copeland retaining ownership of the campus, and what that would mean with the carrying costs and the operating expenses. Copeland has been a partner with the city in trying to have those conversations and have them often over those years. The site was actively marketed for over 2 years. And in those 2 years, there was only one viable candidate who came forward with an offer to purchase the property, and that was Mr. Onder. And as soon as that offer came and Copeland and Mr. Onder came to terms, the negotiation started in earnest with the city and city staff, because it became clear that as an initial tool to use in redeveloping this campus, Chapter 100 and the tax abatement could be there. It was going to be an important tool for the city to potentially consider. I think the city staff and the council has done a great job of doing more than necessary at holding public hearings, the public Q&A session, these meetings that we've been attending. I feel like I've gotten to know and hear the passion from many of your residents. And I commend you for keeping the floor open in all of these meetings, for doing that. I think at that first Q&A, you also heard the passion of my client and his vision for what he wants this campus to potentially become. But that's the issue. It's a vision. It is not certainty. It is not a 200 megawatt data center. That's not what this Chapter 100 is about. Instead, what the Chapter 100 is about, are the procedural and substantive tools and protections that the city can use in this Chapter 100 development agreement and the other agreements to put in place now, so that the city can maintain and enhance their oversight on this campus for the duration of any tax abatement. So, yes, Copeland is considering donating the campus to a nonprofit. I don't think anybody wants that to happen. The developer team doesn't. I know the city doesn't, because that does mean that regardless of 24 taxes or 25 taxes, 26 and 27 and 28 will be zeros. And that doesn't help anybody. What we do know is that the last year of taxes that we are certain about was 2024. Taxes paid into 2025 were paid under protest, which means they were not distributed, or they should not have been distributed by the county to taxing jurisdictions if they were under protest, except under specific limitations under state law. So when we talk about revenue coming in, we are talking about the 2024 levels, which are guaranteed to be maintained under the terms of the agreement. There were early questions about Centene and Centene donating the property. That could happen with Copeland if this doesn't go through tonight. It can't go through with Mr. Onder. There are binding contractual obligations that restrict him from doing that unless he pays at least 5 years worth of pilot payments and property taxes in advance to the city as a penalty, so that the city would have that revenue for 5 years while they worked to not go to zero and to get the property redeveloped. We obviously don't intend to do that, and we hope that goes from there. I want to go back to the fact that this is not about the use. It is about putting in procedures and protections for the city to ensure that as those uses become clear, as those design elements become clear, as construction permits are requested by the developer, that the city is able to properly administer those and is properly protected against violations of those. Mr. Onder is going to fund the $250,000 monitoring fund, which upfront can be used to purchase the monitoring equipment. That $250,000 also needs to be refilled by Mr. Onder throughout the life of the tax abatement. That money will be there so that at any point in the future under this tax abatement, if we are to propose a new data center, a larger data center, a high impact use, we have to come back to the city. Before we even have a discussion about a construction permit, we have to come back and say, here's who the tenant is. Here's what we're proposing. And if the city has concerns about that, there will be a $250,000 fund sitting there for the city to hire Gemma or other outside environmental consultants at Mr. Onder's expense to come and test the property, to advise the city. That's a protection that you have in place. That is more than you have today on this campus. Today on this campus, you have concerns from the citizens about contamination. It's listed on the state contamination site. There's an active environmental cleanup going on, which will be completed within the next several years. The city has real concerns about having to take title to a property with that sort of issue. And they've addressed it. Our development agreement requires Mr. Onder to take all risk when it comes to environmental liability and to fully indemnify the city. These bonds that we hear about, $22 billion of bonds, there's not a single dollar of city money that will be at risk with these bonds. These are bonds where no money moves. They're a construct under Missouri law that is necessary for tax purposes only to effectuate the tax abatement. I know it's a foreign concept and it's sometimes hard to understand. They're book entry only bonds. The city's credit is not at risk. The city is not putting up cash to fund construction. When we talk about the city acquiring the property, acquiring the personal property, they do that on paper only. They pay no money to acquire that. They take no risk in acquiring that. That risk is passed through to the developer in the Chapter 100 documents. We hear concerns about guarantees and there being no guarantees. There are commitments, there are guarantees, there are job thresholds that must be met before any tax abatement is provided to Mr. Onder. He must invest $175 million in capital improvements before any personal property tax abatement is provided. He has specific job requirements and wage requirements that must be met. Section 2.2 requires the capital investment. Section 4.1, 4.2 require him to retain the jobs and create more jobs. Section 5.8B is where we have the protection for him donating the property to a nonprofit. Section 5.8A makes clear that Mr. Onder is responsible for decommissioning the site, so that if there are high impact uses that require specific, expensive decommissioning processes to make sure that that process is shut down properly and responsibly, he's obligated to do that, not the city. We talk about the community benefits agreements. Yes, community benefits agreements are used in projects like this. We've layered many of those provisions into this agreement. And unfortunately, there are limitations on what you can and cannot do under state law as a municipality. But there are the workforce protections. There is an agreement to use union labor. There are $700,000 of impact fees will be paid, not just upfront, but every year to help offset street repairs. We had a commenter talking about the state of the streets in this city. $350,000 might fix some of those potholes. Mr. Honor will be paying that in addition to the pilots that are coming. $350,000 for fire emergency services. Yes, Mr. Franklin.
Yeah, so question.
Yes.
Can you tell me why the developer chose not to provide a detailed site plan of what this was going to look like? Because for me, it's hard for me to approve something that I can't see visually of what you're going to actually build.
We've tried to be clear from the get-go that the actual functional first phase of development is going to be limited to the structures that are already there. So it is refurbishing the interior of the data center. It is doing tenant improvement work for Copeland. It is trying to take some of the other sites on campus, like the warehouse, and considering what we can do to improve that stuff. We don't have the specific plans yet because we don't know who we're building it for. And as those people come, and as those designs are done by the engineers that will be drawing up the construction plans, we have to give those construction plans to the city and get construction permits. And that's the process by which the city will have oversight over any of those uses. And if we come to the city and say, hey, we're going to turn that warehouse into a massive data center, you have the ability under this agreement to do more oversight than you do today on that campus.
Yeah, but again, you're asking for a 15-year tax abate.
Yes.
So I just think it's a good business for you to have a solid business plan of what you're going to develop and how. I can't go get a loan from the bank without a site plan, facilities, business plan about what I'm going to do. It can't be just a concept.
It's not a concept.
And I guess I say that because I looked at other site plans at other jurisdictions here locally, and they were a lot more detailed than what was presented to Ferguson. That's a problem for me. It should be a problem for this whole council. And I'm just hearing you saying we don't know what we're building until they come. But give us 15 years.
I'll give you an example. First, to the duration that you're talking about. Yes. And we did ask for more when we started, and we've agreed to the 15 years and the 75-25 split after negotiation with the city. To your point, the Chapter 100 and that tax abatement are part of stabilizing the campus, keeping Copeland, and positioning the campus so that we can go and attract those tenants. Specifically to your looking at plans in other municipalities, specific to the data centers, what you will find is that if Amazon is doing a data center, if Google is doing a data center, Meta, Oracle, all of these big data center users have different specific designs for how they need their data centers to be built. So we can't give you construction plans for a data center site when we don't know who the tenant is.
So are you saying that if no tenants come, there's no data center?
Yeah, there is a data center there.
I'm talking about a model one, not the old
Yes.
from 2009.
If no data center user comes and wants to locate on campus,
but it's realistic to assume that you already have. I mean, because that's the new thing. So it's realistic that you already have potential suitors for this campus, correct?
There have been conversations, I believe Mr. Anders had conversations with companies, but we don't have their specifics as to what they need to have built.
I got you. Thank you.
We're building it speculatively.
I was just, I mean, you kind of clarified my question. Like you said, you don't have their specifics, but if this tax abatement is approved, more than likely, whoever you have been having a conversation with you'll have another tenant there.
I would hope that some of those tenants that we've had preliminary conversations with would say, yes, we want to come. Then they will give us their specifics as to how they need the design made. And we will have to present those to the city. We will have to identify them as a data center user. And the city then will have the opportunity to not only do the normal construction oversight that they would, but they would have under this agreement, because of the Chapter 100, the ability to then say, okay, we're going to go hire an environmental consultant to get an independent opinion on this. We're going to have them do studies. And we're going to say that as a condition of you building this out for this tenant, you need to do X, Y, and Z. We need heightened buffers between the residential areas and this warehouse. That's what this agreement, that's the process that I'm talking about. You can't put in the substantive because we don't know what we need for substantive issues. But you put in the process so that the city gets more opportunity to oversee what Mr. Honor is going to do with the site than they would today.
I'm done.
Okay, Councilman.
Well, I'll just say that Andre informed the council during the tour that Arco Construction would be building the data center. And I'm sure, and they are a national chain and they specialize in data center. It might have been a good idea to have them here to detail what it is they build and how, because although you don't have a concrete company committed, they can tell you how they, the lay of the land of what that thing looks like. Just a suggestion, with the next municipality you all may approach.
Okay.
I have some comments on this.
Certainly.
My years of construction is 38 years. I've never been on a job that never had, I hear what you're saying. But most industries, they build to suit. Clayco's built buildings and not had one person in there. There's always ways there's architectural drawings where you can amend the drawings.
Mm-hmm.
But in my heart, I'm looking at this and you're telling me, well, we ain't got no drawings. We can't do this. We can't do that. But that's been my trade. And this is like a pre-job conference to me. And there are always some kind of renderings. You could scratch it out on toilet paper to let us know something that show us that. I Googled Siemens just to see the cooling. The water includes cooling.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody's ever talked to the citizens about that.
I understand. That's why I opened with the concern that
and there are big concerns on this.
And we understand that. And I think had we to do it over, we may have done some of those things, but we are where we are. And this is unfortunately a decision that the council has to make. I will just reiterate that you're right. Build to suit, the tenant, what you're building. If you're building on spec, you're building a shell that you're leaving white boxed or gray boxed so that when you do find a tenant, you're going to do the tenant improvement work for them. We're not at that point in this process. That point will come and you will have the drawings. It's your process as a city requires us to show you drawings. And then this agreement for the Chapter 100 gives you more oversight, more ability to come back to us and say, that's fine. You can build something that's a permitted use, right? Construction permits should be an administrative process. If it's zoned, which despite what others have said, it is zoned to permit these uses, right? And so if you have a situation where a property owner wants to do something that's permitted by zoning and they submit all of the proper paperwork, they get the permit. That's an administrative process. It's not a discretionary process.
I understand that.
And we've built in here the discretionary process for the city. to be able to not only do that, but more.
Most of our citizens didn't even know about the power plant, the substation that was going to, our citizens think they're going to be piping in electricity from Ameren. And now you're building the substation, but there was nothing mentioned to that. And I need you to elaborate on that too. The substation is being built.
Sure. That has been a discussion as to if they will need to have the capacity to power the technology and data center potential of the site. We would need to build a large substation. We've been clear about that, I believe, from the Q&A session. We addressed that issue. It will not use Ameren power. It will not use water from the same system that services the residents of Ferguson. It will not use gas from Spire that will impact the residents of the city of Ferguson. And those are also in the agreement. We have to disclose what utilities we bring to the site. And that covers two different substantive issues. One, to make sure that we are not having an adverse impact on the citizens and the community. Once it's designed, once we know exactly what the uses are, we have to bring it to you and say, here's the design for the substation. Here's how we're doing it. Here's where it will be located. Here's how we're servicing it. What we do know today is that it will not have an impact on rates or any of the residents' bottom line when it comes to what they pay for their utilities, because we will be doing it at our cost. Not like the Armory, right? They have an Ameren power substation right next door. That's why they don't need to build one. And who paid for that? Ameren customers paid for that substation. That will not be the case here. If that substation is built, it will be built on our dollar per the agreement. It must be built to not have no adverse impact to city residents per our agreement.
What is your definition of adverse effect? Because I've worked on big substations where the noise is really, really loud.
Mm-hmm.
And it travels. It's just not right there in that one area. I've worked on big substations where you can hear it before you come around the corner.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what's your
noise
levels,
water,
and
air.
How will you deaden that noise? What's your plan to deaden the noise of the substation like that?
I'm the lawyer, so I don't have the technical specifics about what needs to be done for noise dampening effects. We have specific noise thresholds built into the project so that as measured by these monitoring, that will give real-time monitoring, there are specific thresholds built into the agreement that we need to do. If the city, when we disclose a proposed use and a proposed tenant feels that those thresholds needs to be changed, you have the ability under this agreement to ask for those thresholds to be changed. But specifically, I know air, water, noise, those are all, nuisances under the law that you already regulate through your zoning ordinances and your nuisance ordinances and your public health and safety. We have to abide by the city rules. We have to abide by the state and federal rules. And now we also have this enhanced monitoring that the city will have under this agreement.
Okay, let's move on to the next thing that I might want to ask you. What about the natural gas?
Mm-hmm.
The size of your natural gas line that you're going to have to use to power that station, to power the data center. What kind of containment do you have for the CO2? Natural gas gives off a CO2. That's why our small furnaces are vented.
Mm-hmm.
So imagine I'm looking at a 2-foot wide pipe coming in and firing up. What systems do they have in place? Because I read about it now. The downside of natural gas is the CO2 emissions into the atmosphere.
Mm-hmm.
You can't contain them all.
Right.
And that's a big concern with me.
Understandably.
CO2 is a killer.
It certainly is. And, that's why there are so many federal, state regulations that govern that, number one, that we would be, but with respect, Mayor, I can't answer that question because I don't know the specifics as to a 2-foot pipe and what it gives off.
Or it don't have to be 2 foot, it's gonna be bigger than our natural gas line.
Understandably. All I know is if that is part of what this project will entail, that has to be part of the plans that we give to the city. And we're paying for you to go hire an environmental engineer to come in and advise the city on what protections you may want to put to help. I don't know those answers. We've tried to say from the beginning that those answers are technical engineering questions, but also are dependent upon what we need to build to, what we need to build to suit. And the city, what we've tried to do, because I don't feel like even if we gave you an answer, it's necessarily going to be the same answer that we see 2 years from now. And so to protect against that, we've built a legal construct here that gives you enhanced oversight to allow in 2 years, if we say, okay, we know we said this, but now we're going to be doing this. I would rather you have the bite in 2 years at figuring out how to regulate that on what's actually going to happen than trying to guess at what regulations you might need now. And that's why we've tried to work with the city and the city's outside counsel to try and structure an agreement that gives the city that flexibility to be able to apply the rules and regulations to what it is actually going to be 2, 5, 7, 8 years from now, as opposed to what we might speculate it could be today. Because the technology is going to change too, right? So if we were to have an engineer up here and give you an answer, okay, but that answer might be different if we have somebody come in 5 years from now as to what the issues are that the city needs to consider. And that's why we've tried to structure this so that there will not only be an opportunity for the city to do that oversight, there will be funds available for the city to do that oversight, not at the cost of the city or the citizens.
The reason I ask these questions, because my concern is about the citizens.
As it should be.
And during this time, I've heard a lot of talk about different types of systems. So I just did my research and nothing's foolproof. You know, I've been quiet on the issue. These citizens can tell you, they don't know which way I'm going on this. But I want everybody in this room and whoever's on the online to understand what this whole system is about. Because if we could have did it a different way, I would prefer to have your engineer up in here to answer some of those questions. I would prefer to have your electrician up in here, whatever it takes, your plumbing, to talk about the scrapers, to talk about the containment facility, how much gets away from the containment facility, where the water, trucking water in, how much are you, our roads. Now, you're shaking your head, but now you will be trucking water in, right?
We've answered those questions.
Well, some citizens really don't know.
There will be no increase of trucking of water or truck traffic beyond what is currently there today. But that's, again, that's a speculation because we don't know what those demands will be. As what we know right now, we don't foresee there being increased traffic in that respect.
Okay, that's some of the concerns. I'm just addressing some of the concerns that citizens don't have the capability to ask.
Sure.
And I think now's no better time than to lay all the cards on the table.
Yeah.
Before this takes place here.
No, I understand the predicament that you're all in because we can't give you these specifics to the level that you would want. And that's why I'm up here to just say that's why we've worked with your attorneys and with your staff to negotiate an agreement that gives you that opportunity when those details get known to have another bite at the apple and to have those questions answered with specifics as to what they are doing in that moment, as opposed to speculation at this point.
You have something else to say? Okay.
I just have one quick question. In regard to the site plan, my understanding in the conversations I've had so far is that for the time being, at least, if I pull up Google Maps and look at the satellite view of the campus right now, that's the site plan. Has that changed or?
No,
Okay.
that's the site plan. That's why it's.
I mean, that's
shown
not
as it
the
is.
eternal site plan, but it's the site plan for.
I think
today.
part of the struggle, right, is that site plan is a legal concept of zoning, right? And so if we were changing the zoning, if we were changing footprints or densities or anything that under the zoning code would require us to go get a new site plan approved, we would have to produce a new site plan according to the specifics of the zoning code. We don't have that situation, so we've tried to be clear that our intent with the initial phase is to not build new buildings, to focus on interior renovations as we need them for the tenants.
Councilman Franklin.
So during the Q&A session we had, I guess a month ago, I asked the question, would there be any diesel fuel generator backup? And I was told no diesel at this location. But based off what you're saying now, this could evolve, based off of who you do business with and how big that data center is. There may be backup diesel generators, which is kind of the industry standard. And that's my greatest concern for residents is the air quality, because if it's a 200 megawatt facility or larger, it's going to require a set number of backup diesel generators. Not what we see at a fire department or at a hospital. It's going to be a lot. And we have a residential community that butts up to the campus. That's going to affect air quality. Now, of course, that will be a regulated, permitted facility because of those backup generators. But my problem is, even when you do everything according to regulations, oops happens, mistakes happen, staffing changes, accidents happen, and the community pays for those accidents. You know what I'm saying? You get a citation and a warning letter or whatever it may be from that regulatory body, but our community pays the price for those oops, as I call them, that happen in facilities all across St. Louis County today.
Absolutely.
And so that kind of troubles me that there's not a set project moving forward with this, chapter 100, because it's kind of just a concept. And 15 years is a long time to give for a concept. Thank you, sir.
To that point, the existing data center that's been there for almost 20 years has a diesel generator. I'm not aware of whether there have been specific air issues related to that.
It's only a few, so it doesn't meet the threshold required.
Right, but I think to that point, right, there's been a data center there operating. It's had the diesel backup generators. Who's to say what that technology for backup energy will be 5 years from now? If it is us coming to you and saying we want to do a massive new data center, then and it's going to require that many diesel generators, this structure allows for that oversight to happen then, when it's a specific plan that we know about. But there would be nothing that would prevent you from installing X amount of. They would just have to be permitted probably with St. Louis County, maybe the state as they change regulations. So yeah, we would have oversight, but we would not be able to prevent, say, 20, 30, 40 backup generators based off of need on that site. I mean, you could, under this agreement, you could put in protections that say we won't approve the use for it. And then it is in there. I can give you the citation if necessary.
Just want to make a comment. So we're voting on the tax abatement. We don't exactly know what's coming. So when you guys do start building, that has to go to planning and zoning. And the permit money that we would get off this project will be in the thousands of dollars. Set aside the tax abatement, just the permitting will be thousands and thousands of dollars. if you do build the mini power plant, the taxes off of that will be in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. And so I understand why you don't have plans, because this is for the tax abatement. This is not planning and zoning. And I just want to give you an example. I think it was the Jamestown Mall that they tore down. And let's suppose I buy the Jamestown Mall and I get funding from the bank. And they say, well, what businesses are going to be there? I can't exactly tell them. I can say, well, it was a Nike shop there before, it was an Abercrombie Fitch, a Victoria's Secret, but I don't know who my renters are until they actually come to me and say, hey, I would like to rent a spot in your mall. So I can't draw a rendering of the mall with all these stores unless I know absolutely that they're going to be there. So to your defense, I kind of understand why you don't have any drawings or renderings, because you don't know who's going to be renting from you. That being said, this is for the tax abatement. This is not a planning and zoning, and I think we're getting these issues mixed up. So when that time comes, you will have your site plans for the planning and zoning, and we'll go through that process and people will vote yay or nay. Then it will come before us. So I don't want to mix apples and oranges here. We're just voting for the tax abatement right now.
Yes.
I hear what you're saying, Councilman Franklin, but if this council approves a tax abatement and then the developer comes and says, oh, this is what we're building, what goes to planning and planning and zoning brings it to council, it would be kind of silly of council not to approve it. Because, I mean, that goes against what we're voting for now. Why would you approve a tax abatement and then say, okay, well, we don't know what you're going to develop. Bring the plans to us later on. We may approve it, we may not approve it. To me, that doesn't make a lot of sense. But because this conversation has evolved and we are voting on a tax abatement, I do understand that, but the conversation has evolved and we don't know, like you said, we really don't know, will there be any money for adverse health concerns in this tax abatement?
Not proactively.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Mhm. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yep.
Appreciate
I was going to possibly also bring up our attorney from Gilmore and Bell, who talks about chapter 100, but that's totally up to council. I know I wanted to bring him up because I knew he was going to address the concerns. I also have our attorney here about chapter 100 if there's other concerns revolving around that. Otherwise, I'll just move to you guys, but it's up to you. Yes? Mark asked.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. My name is Matt Spikerman. I'm an attorney at Gilmore and Bell. I'm here representing the city of Ferguson. If you're not familiar with Gilmore and Bell, we represent basically only local governments. We do not represent developers. I work with a number of communities on Chapter 100 projects. It's a very common tool in Missouri, particularly for large industrial projects. Around North County, some more noticeable examples of Chapter 100s are the Boeing expansion near the airport, and then some large industrial parks in Hazelwood and Maryland Heights. And I want to take a note just on those large industrial parks. Those are often, or those were presented to the Hazelwood City Council and Maryland Heights City Council pretty much at the same stage you're seeing this here. That's pre-tenant. So basically getting a structure in place, getting a level of tax abatement, allowing the developer to stabilize the finances to go out and get tenants. So that's why you're seeing it here today versus the, more polished project proposal you'll see at a planning and zoning process. Mr. Segura hit on a lot of items regarding the Chapter 100. I'm not going to go into repeat all of them, but just a few things I do want to point up on the finances. As it was said, currently, or 2024 taxes on the project site were about $822,000. with the chapter 100, the developer would be paying a 25% payment in lieu of tax. That's basically 25% of the taxes that would otherwise be due to the very, very large investment in the property. That 25% of taxes on the real estate alone could be as much as $5 million in a few years. So going from 822 a year to 5 million. The personal property amount depends on the value of the personal property that gets installed on the site, but that could be several $1 million more per year as well. With respect to any infrastructure associated with utilities, that will be all on the developer's dime. We talked about decommissioning and certified waste recycling, so we will want to make this as environmentally friendly as possible. With respect to the noise, I do want to cite a section in the development agreement. As an example of what Mr. Skura was talking about. With respect to noise, the city can require that the developer provide, quote, an acoustical engineering study, noise and vibration assessment prior to the consideration of any building permit. So that's a way that we've set up the structure. We allow the modern technology, the technology there at the time the use is being constructed to guide us in the way of creating that use and mitigating it, making it as lessening the noise as much as possible, making sure there's no impact on the neighboring residential areas. And then finally, just nothing in this agreement will waive any sort of generally applicable building permit, zoning consideration. This is not zoning, this is the tax abatement, and all your usual building permit processes would apply, plus any additional stuff we add in here. And I know it's been a long night, so I'm happy to pause and answer any questions.
Yeah, one concern that I've heard from a lot of people that I'd like you to address. As part of the Chapter 100 process, the city takes title to the property for the duration of the Chapter 100 agreement. In the event that SSL goes bankrupt or the corporation is dissolved or something like that, is there a mechanism in place that prevents the city of Ferguson from being liable for what is a site that we know has environmental issues that are far beyond the capacity of this city to deal with?
Yeah, there is. Before you would get to a final determination of bankruptcy on SSL, the city can force SSL or its successors to take title back to the property, get the city off there. In the meantime, we have full indemnification, full insurance policies, protect the city. For instance, like the Boeing plant by the airport. I mean, no municipality would undertake that unless they were, properly indemnified, properly secured against risk. And as you can see, St. Louis County undertook that.
So Boeing's a Chapter 100?
It is.
Okay, didn't know that.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mayor and council, that's all I had for my portion, unless there's any other questions.
Thank you, City Manager. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilman Williams,
Aye.
Councilman Cassoff,
Aye.
Councilwoman Covington,
Aye.
Councilwoman Noah,
No.
Councilman Palmer,
Abstain.
Councilman Franklin,
No.
Mayor Shropshire.
Before I can vote on this matter, I want to read something. I want to take a moment to speak directly to the residents of Ferguson. Over the past several weeks, this chamber has been filled with passionate voters, passionate voices from people who care deeply about this community. residents have come forward with serious concerns about the proposed data center development project, from environmental and health implications to questions about the Chapter 100 tax abatement structure, to the lack of clearly defined community benefit agreement, and concerns about how this project was handled before it ever reached the vote tonight. I want the public to know, I hear you. I'm listening to you. I hear you. Personally, share many of the concerns that have been raised as a mayor. It was critical that I remain neutral and open to this process. That is why I did not attend a meeting that was scheduled for residents recently at the STEM school. And that is also why I also requested additional time before this vote to better understand the proposal. Hear from all parties involved, consultants with legal counsel, and determine whether there was any pathway towards a stronger deal for our community. I have approached this process with an open mind and with the seriousness this decision demands. I ask for courtesy and respect and trust to do the work without the negativity and personal attacks whenever decisions or circumstances do not align with the individual expectations. With this said, I will cast my vote now. And my vote is no. So will we hear, can I hear the vote count, please?
3 noes and 3 yeses. And 1 abstain.
And can I have clarity on how that abstain is counted? Does it go towards, is there any, or
It's
just?
not a vote.
It's not a vote.
It's not.
Okay. Motion fails. Do we have any unfinished business? No unfinished business? Any new business? We move to miscellaneous. Councilwoman Noah?
Well, I just would like to thank everyone for coming tonight. This has been a process for us all, and these decisions are tough. I just want the community to know that. Again, I was a yes vote to go into the negotiation because I wanted to really be open-minded. I didn't just want to say, no, 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 I don't support this. But with everything that's been presented, again, there were just too many unknowns for me to say yes. And a 15-year tax abatement is just too long. And yes, again, our city, we need increased revenue. We know that, and I'll say it again. We really are going to have to be more strategic. We are going to have to improve our operational services. We are going to have to learn how to do more with less. We have been surviving since 2014. I came onto this council in 2021, and things have improved since then. And no, we're not where we want to be, but I believe in the staff. I believe in our city manager Musgrave. He's been here. We're gonna have to be strategic. I mean, and that's what our operations, we are gonna have to be strategic. I know and this is not about me personally, but I'm a homeowner, I'm a resident. I grew up in this community. I am a comment. We can do it. We can do it, but no, it's not simple. It's not easy. Again, I worked for St. Louis County government for 8.5 years, and for 6 of those years, or maybe 7, no increase, nothing. And I support staff, and I'm not saying that I want that for our staff, but what I am saying is, since I've been sitting on this council, staff has received increases. There have been no layoffs. And I just want us to go into an open mind as we go into the budget season, and we've cut back before. We may have to cut back a little bit more. Sometimes you have to go backwards in order to move forward. You know, so we all live here, so we're totally invested in this community. And that may not be what staff wants to hear or some residents, but that's what we are going to have to do until we can do better. So thank you all. Thank you. Thank you.
I have nothing.
So I just want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. This has been a big ticket item in the city the last 2 months. I want to encourage all of you to stay engaged, not just here in council chambers, but in your neighborhoods. We got neighborhood organizations that need people to be organized for them to function the way they were intended. I also want to challenge my fellow council members. Part of our job of representing our constituents is we have to attract business to the city as well. It's not just on our city manager and staff, not just on individual developers that may want to come into our city. We have to reach out to people and see who we can network and tie in with the city manager. So I think that's something we need to work. Maybe we can work together on it. If not, I'll keep doing the job. And just want to say thanks again for coming out, and everybody have a blessed night going on.
Councilman Palmer. Councilman Williams.
It's only a few people up here that are true business people that understand finances, what it takes to start a business, and what it takes to meet a payroll. That's very important. So the last 2 budgets, we've cut a lot. We're gonna have to cut more. We're fighting over what streets get speed humps. It's ridiculous. This was a great project, and we just basically spat in their face, to be honest. Where I'm from, the Raleigh-Durham area has a research triangle park. I think they started that in the late 60s or 70s. They have a lot of IT companies. It's so great, in fact, Apple built their 2nd headquarters there. Very prosperous, a lot of tax dollars, good schools, UNC, Carolina, Duke. My sister attended Duke, got her PhD, great place. But you can't do any of that without a tax base. So Councilman Noah said, we'll make a way. This is not we shall overcome. It takes money this day and time to do stuff. We needed the money. This was a good project. I think our city attorney, their attorney on their side, negotiated a fair deal for the city. And a lot of information that was going around was not true. It was false. We actually would get more money than we currently get, even with the tax abatement. The better they would have done, the more taxes we would have collected. Now, I just want to mention some of these municipalities. Jennings, Pine Lawn, Dalewood. What do those have in common? Correct. Predominantly Black. White flight.
Sorry.
You have white flight. Not saying white is right, but when those individuals leave, they leave they take their tax dollars with them. And so you have permanent infrastructures. Not long ago, Pine Lawn, what in the 70s was a productive and prosperous area. I actually own a daycare in that area. That's a low income area, and I try to help those kids through education. So I think we dropped the ball on this, and a lot of people don't understand pure economics. And it's a lot of rhetoric on, I don't go on Facebook, a lot of rhetoric. And it's a lot of people that don't have anything to do, retired or don't work, and they get on Facebook and they're keyboard warriors. I just hope maybe we can come back to the drawing board. We're out of ARPA dollars. That was keeping us afloat. We don't have that anymore. So, yeah. So when you come to council and you want that speed bump or people are breaking in your house and we're cutting police, I just want you guys to think of this moment. It takes money to provide these services. If we don't have that tax revenue, we cannot provide these services. Thank you. God bless. Good night.
As mayor of Ferguson, this was one of the toughest decisions I ever had to make. I started attending council meetings in 1990. I haven't missed a one. Outside my illness, I was listening to it on Zoom. During my illness, I was calling Chief Hampton up. I was sick. I had RSV, double pneumonia, and kidney failure at the same time. But I was still trying to stay involved in my city and stay engaged in the citizens during that time. The doctors were saying, hey, you ain't got time to do this. You got to think about yourself. But you know one thing? I care about my people. We're a family. I've been through hard times with this city, and we survived. And we became stronger. Yes, the unknown brings fear and panic. We're going to be able to police the neighborhoods. We're going to be able to fix our streets some way or another. I'm not about a fear monger. I'm not going to bring fear into this. I'm not going to start trying to bring anger into this because we're not, our budget it has to be cut. But I want all the citizens in town, in this great city of Ferguson, that we will do the best as this council, as a team. This is my team. I believe in team concept, and we're going to do the best we can to keep our services going for our city. I guarantee you that when your house gets broke into, you'll have an officer there. When there's an accident or when there's a heart attack, when somebody's mom or something has a problem, you will have medical services there. We've been through lean times before and we made it through. There's always something that comes up to pull us out. Addressing the ARCA, the money we got pre-COVID. Our city was not in good shape before COVID. The dollars bailed us out. That might have been good and it might have been bad. But with this deal that we got, we still would have budget cuts. Just to let you know. When we set in this budget meeting next week, there's still going to be cuts, even if we took this deal. We will survive. I guarantee you that. So let's walk with our heads up and be proud of our city and how it's going now. We will continue to bring businesses in. I hope I can work with the city manager to really get businesses into that building. Now that we've been on the news, Ferguson, with this big building, there will be people wanting to come in this building. I'll work with the community development director and the planning and zoning, me and the city manager and the council, my team. We're going to do everything we can. This is your team, the city's team. We will do everything we can to bring money into the city and to bring businesses in to that building over there. If Copeland decides to leave, there might be some way we can work with Copeland to bring industry in. There's a realtor there now. Sure, I don't know if we marketed the building well enough before or not. But during this time now, that will be one of our main goals, I feel, on this council, to get people into that building. Hard times, everything's hard. Gas, I was in Ohio this past weekend, $5.99 a gallon. That's serious. So work with us. And please, when things don't get done, because I know how our citizens can be. We can be rough on council. We can be rough on city manager. Work with us. I know there's going to be people out there that didn't like my vote. I said nothing up to this point on which way I was going to go, because one thing I do know, I had numerous ministers calling and praying for me to make the right decision. And out of all that, every minister said, do what's in your heart. And I feel strongly about my decision that I made. And I hope that we can get all citizen support in these lean times that we might have in our city. Is there a motion on the floor to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.
Because I figured it like